First of all, welcome back. I realize it has literally been more than 2 years since I've had this many people in a classroom on this campus together at the same time. And it does feel weird. If there's, it's 2 years, you start to develop habits after that. So thank you for being willing to come in. I think it's going to make this evening a lot more meaningful and a lot easier to do. Over the last 2 years, when we've gotten to this point of these projects in this class, it's been kind of a real struggle to figure out ways to do testing of the games in a way that gives meaningful feedback and kind of involves everybody in the process. So this is great that we've gotten back to a point where, at least for this activity, we can be here together. Um, Basically, the rough idea for tonight is, and I have to redo this kind of every year we do this because it depends on how many groups there are and so on. I have not had 8 game groups in quite a while, so it would be impractical, I think, to beta test each of the 8 games sort of sequentially. We'd be here more than the night. So what I think we're going to do is basically split the class in half tonight. I had thought about trying to mix up groups, and especially with the groups that have more than one person, to try to break those people across. But I think it makes more sense to keep groups together and just to kind of put 4 of the groups together and put the other 4 groups together. So within those subgroups, you'll be going through and testing each of the 4 games that are within that group. And I figure if we take 15, 20 minutes or so on each of the games, we should still be able to get through everything tonight and still get out of here on time and still get the feedback that we need. So that's kind of my rough plan. Interestingly enough, roughly speaking, we had out of the eight games, we have roughly 4 of them that are sort of on SEL type of topics and sort of life skills topics. And we had 3 that are basically on math topics. So that seemed to be the main breakdown. And then we have 1 art game in thrown into the mix too. So we've got 1 there. So what I'm also going to try to do is to divide those up so that we don't have one group that's like all the SEL games. So you're getting some response from people that haven't been working on a game that's in the same general topic area as yours. So that'll be the main plan for tonight. Is we'll divide up into 2 groups, and I think this room is big enough that each of those subgroups can grab part of the room. And we'll go through. I'll kind of try to keep a timer going so that we stay on schedule in terms of getting through the 4 games in each group. And then hopefully have a little bit of time at the end for especially the multi-person groups to do a little debrief within themselves and kind of see what they got from tonight's activity. Before we jump into all that, though, I did want to just take a moment and just kind of sketch out the remainder of the course at this point, which seems weird to be able to say, but we're kind of there. Next week has always been an asynchronous week from the syllabus. It was a lab optional week, meaning that I can be here on campus if there are groups that would like to come in or individuals that would like to come in next Wednesday and be on campus and work. I can be here. I will probably check in. I won't do it tonight because you probably don't know what's going to be happening a week from now. But I will do some sort of a check-in as we get closer. If it looks like nobody has any interest in coming into campus, then I won't come in just for me. But if anyone wants to come in, even if it's just 1 or 2 people, I'm more than willing to come in. I do know that many of you probably are on spring break next week with your home schools. I know some schools, most years it seems like everybody lines up, but I remember you saying you're the week after. Oh,
I get Good Friday off and then goes into break.
Goes after that. Got it. So unfortunately, we can't hit everybody's, but because next week is many people's spring break, I figured it'll also be a good week to just have an asynchronous. And for those of you in both classes, next week is also an asynchronous week in the other class. So there's no sort of required class meetings during next week. The week after, week 13, is mainly about kind of wrapping up the gamification projects. That's the week that we will do the quick individual presentations on those. So hopefully you will have those projects wrapped up by that time. that includes actually trying out your gamification plan with whoever your target audience was, and hopefully getting a little bit of feedback or a little bit of data on whether what you did actually did improve the motivation in that particular task or whatever it was. That will also be a lab optional week. So that week you do not need to come onto campus to do those presentations, but you can come onto campus if you would like to. I will be here, and that will be the main activity that week. Then we get one more kind of asynchronous, just work week to kind of wrap everything up for your game projects, for anything else you've got still going. And then we're up to week 15, which is the last class meeting week. We'll do some wrap-up activities that week, give people a chance to just sort of debrief the game projects. By then, probably most of you will know what different games have been being worked on, but we'll talk a little bit about the process and any comments or follow-ups or things that you kind of came out of the whole process with in terms of doing the game projects, the gamification projects, the scratch projects, just kind of debriefing the whole course. And then week 16 is the finals week for campus. There is no final for this course. There's no class scheduled for that week, but that week is available if anybody is still finishing up projects. You do still basically have that final week to get things finished and submitted. And I will be sending out a notification. I don't remember off the top of my head, but there is a date that I have to have my grades turned in by. And I just back that date up by a few days as sort of a hard date for everybody to have all of their work in so that I have time to go through everything. So we're kind of heading into the final stretch. So asynchronous next week, just a work week. Week after we finish up gamification. Week after is a final work week. And then we wrap up the course in week 15 and get all final work in. Any questions, comments, concerns about any of that? Yeah.
For the presentation for gamification, do we need to have anything like prepared, or are we just gonna really?
Not really. I mean, again, with 15 of us, these are going to be pretty brief. So just a quick overview of what you gamified, how you gamified it, and maybe if you saw results, like what kind of results did you see? But you figure 15 people, even at 5 minutes a person, that's still an hour and 20 minutes or so. So it does go fast. So yeah, you don't have to have like a PowerPoint or anything like that. Just basic top level, just share out kind of what you did in a couple of minutes or less. All right, anything else? I think we have all 14 here now. Awesome. Thank you all for making the trek. I know some of you, that's a distance to come from, so I appreciate it. All right, so let's just kind of jump right into this so that we can get going. So I think, as well as I can tell, we've got groups 1, 2, 3, and 8 are the single person groups. So I'm going to split those up so that we have 2 of the single person groups in each of our subgroups. And then because we are down 1 person in one group tonight, we're left with 2 3-person groups here tonight and 2 2-person groups here tonight. So just to keep the number of people balanced between the 2 groups so that when you're trying things out, you kind of have the same number of people to work with. We're going to do groups 1 and 3, which are 2 of the single person groups, group 4 and group 7. Group 4 is the art game. Group 7 is one of the math games. I had the page pulled up here. Hopefully you know what group number you are. I did not jot down names here. And so then obviously groups 2 and 8, which are the other 1-person groups, will be in the other, and then groups 5. I think group 5 is that I think that's the Game of Life one. Am I correct? So group 5 will be in that second group, and group 6, which is one of the math games. So we should have 2 SEL-ish kinds of things in each group. One group will have 2 math games. The other one will have the math and the art game. We should have 7 people in each group. It doesn't matter to me what order you go through. You can certainly make use of any of these computers. If you've got something, in your game that would be pulled up on a smart board or something like that, you can pull it up on these computers. Or if you've got your laptops, you can use them. Whatever materials you need to do. For this activity to be as meaningful as possible, try to be, I know that like some of you have done elementary school games, and obviously we are not elementary school kids, but try to be as authentic as you can get within the group. You can certainly kind of introduce the game to the group, but try not to explain every nuance of the game. See if the people can play the game based off of whatever instructions you've developed, because that's one of the things you want to test, is to see if your instructions are clear. So kind of, keep an eye on that. You may not have time to play an entire game worth. We want to keep these again to like 15 to 20 minutes per game. So you may have to at some point either kind of speed things up or like jump to an ending or just explain how the ending would work. But really, for to get as much as you can out of this, try to test the games as authentically as you can within reason. And for the people who are in the game, for whose game it is that you're playing, just try to kind of watch the group and see what kind of questions come up and see where there maybe are hesitations or unsure of what's supposed to happen next or what they're supposed to do, because those are the kinds of things then that you're going to want to go back and maybe try to adjust your rules or adjust the wording of something or something like that. So that's what you want to kind of track through the evening as you go through. All right? All right. Anything else I need to say before we start? All right. So in terms of how we want to use this space, again, I mean, people could even come over here. I know there aren't desks and so on, but or we could kind of go like back into the room and front end of the room. Doesn't really matter to me, but sort of figure out which side of the or which group you're with. So 1, 3, 4, and 7 with one group, 2, 5, 6, and 8 with the other group, and pick one of the 4 games and just jump right in with the first game, and then I'll just kind of give like 15, 20-minute warnings to hopefully be wrapping up one game and moving on to the next one, just to keep us overall on time tonight. And we'll just go from there. All right? Ready, set, go.
And we figured out, because we don't know how to